I recently did a video talking about the 1930 sci-fi novel Gladiator by Philip Wiley and how half of that book made its way into the Marvel Universe. Well, being in the public domain, the book's protagonist, Hugo Danner, also made his way into the DC Universe as the father of Arn Monroe of the Young All-Stars. This got me to thinking, who are all the other characters shared between DC Comics and Marvel Comics? In theory, the list should be about zero, but there are a few sneaky characters with one foot in both worlds. I won't be covering historical figures like Abraham Lincoln. This video would never end if I did that. Nor will I cover mythological characters like Heracles or Thor. We'll be talking about more recent characters like Clark Kent. Obviously, you've got original recipe Clark, native to various Earths of DC Comics, but someone who looks and talks an awful lot like Clark appeared very briefly in Walt Simonson's Thor run. Legally, he wasn't named, so I suppose you can say, nah, that's just some guy who looks like Clark Kent, but we have no confirmation. But there's no way we could ever get confirmation unless Simonson just came out and said, yeah, it's him. Also in the Marvel Universe, in Quasar 17, the speedsters of the Marvel Universe are having a big race, and some guy materializes, wearing remnants of a yellow and red costume. He doesn't remember his name, but says it's something along the lines of Buried Alien. I'm not saying this is Barry Allen, but we haven't seen Buried Alien anywhere since Barry Allen returned to the DC Universe, have we? In 1995, Chris Claremont and Dwayne Turner gifted us with Sovereign 7, which is a weird example of a creator-owned series that is still set in the DC Universe, as it has Batman and some Fourth World characters showing up. But in issue 2, we also have a guy in cowboy boots calling someone Bub, and we hear the familiar snick sound of claws. Your guess is as good as mine on who that could be. But then in the following issue, we have a blonde girl and her brunette roommate struggling with homework. The brunette has something in her book bag drinking a latte with its long tongue. This might be the least subtle of all of them so far, but I guess if you weren't up on the X-Men, you might not know who these two are, especially as Illyana Rasputin was de-aged in the Inferno storyline of 1989, and then was killed off in Uncanny X-Men 303 in 1993, and Kitty hadn't even lived in America since the Excalibur series kicked off in 1988. So if you were strictly a DC dude, or had only just started reading comics, this cameo might fly over your head, though you would still know something weird is going on even if you didn't know what it was referring to. Our other candidates are much subtler, to the point where you could argue it's not the same character existing in two separate companies. In the first Super Friends comic series, in issue 5, the Super Friends are working a telethon to raise money for charity. Batman speaks with a Mr. Stark who donates $75,000. That's quite a lot of money for you and me, but if this guy's first name was Tony, this would make a lot more sense. We also have Peter Parker making a one-panel cameo in Crisis on Infinite Earths. This one I'm almost inclined to say is a coincidence, but on the other hand, why is some civilian photographer here? The late great George Perez was working with 50 years of DC Comics lore, and could have put anyone from the obscure depths of DC lore into this panel, but no, he chose to put an unnamed photographer in here. Also, if your copy of the trade paperback looks like this, then this same photographer shows up on the cover here too. I probably missed a few, but isn't this kind of cool? Or annoying if you hate these kind of wink-wink references? Either way, now you know, and knowing is half the battle. I'll see you around with something else in the future. Until then, have a good one.